What would you do if your life's greatest blessing came from the most unexpected source? Could a stranger, a person you've never met, hold the key to your survival? Sometimes, heroes don't wear suits. They wear the scars of their struggles. This is the story of one such hero. In a bustling city where wealth and poverty collide, two lives are about to change forever. On one side, you have Daniel, an ambitious millionaire whose fortune and power couldn't shield him from loneliness. And on the other, Alex, a homeless man living in the shadows, whose life is marked by hardship and survival. Their paths will cross in a moment that defies all expectations, leaving both men and everyone around them changed in ways they never could have imagined. We've all had moments when life throws us challenges or gifts from the most unlikely places, and sometimes it's the people we least expect who show us what true heroism looks like. This story is a reminder that even in our darkest times, humanity and kindness have the power to shine the brightest. Meet Daniel, a self-made millionaire who built his empire from scratch. To the world, he seemed to have it all: expensive cars, a sprawling mansion, and a life others only dream of. But within the walls of his luxurious office, Daniel was trapped in a cage of solitude. Success had come at the cost of meaningful connections. Despite the wealth, he felt an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. His wealth had made him a master of his world, yet it had left him alone, isolated, and yearning for something more. Then there's Alex. Once a hopeful young man with big dreams, Alex's life had been overtaken by the unforgiving streets of the city. His existence was a daily struggle to find shelter, food, and safety. While Daniel sat high above in his office, Alex faced the cold nights, with only the flickering streetlights to guide him through the darkness. Yet, despite his hardships, Alex never gave up. His spirit remained unbroken, and somewhere deep inside, he clung to the hope that his situation could change. In the heart of the city, where towering skyscrapers block out the sun and the streets pulse with life, the divide between wealth and poverty couldn't be more apparent. Daniel's glass office overlooked the very streets where Alex roamed. In the contrast between the two men's lives lay an ocean of disparity, yet fate was about to erase that distance. As Daniel looked out of his window, the city seemed like a well-oiled machine. A machine that operated by the rules of power, money, and success. He saw people like Alex, but they were just faces in the crowd, invisible to him. But as we'll soon see, that invisibility would be shattered in the most unimaginable way. One fateful night, a storm hit the city with the fury of 1,000 tempests. Winds howled, rain poured, and the city seemed to hold its breath. Daniel found himself stuck in a precarious situation. His car broke down on a deserted street, far from any help. The storm was relentless, and he was vulnerable. Just as despair began to sink in, a figure appeared through the rain: Alex. In that moment, Daniel's life hung by a thread, and the man who seemed the least likely to offer assistance was the only one who could save him. Alex's actions in that moment would not only alter the course of Daniel's life, but also change the way both men viewed the world forever. The storm had passed, but the encounter between Daniel and Alex left a lingering sense of discomfort and curiosity. Grateful for Alex's help but unsure of how to proceed, Daniel initially offered a small token of gratitude, a few $100s, thinking it might be enough to show his appreciation. However, Alex, who had spent most of his life on the streets, refused the money. His eyes, though tired and weathered, held something far more valuable than material wealth: dignity. "You don't understand, man," Alex said, his voice surprisingly calm despite the chaos of the evening. "I'm not doing this for cash. I'm just helping, 'cause that's what people should do." Daniel was taken aback. He had assumed Alex would be like everyone else, quick to accept whatever was offered. But this man was different. He wasn't interested in charity. He wasn't asking for anything in return. This encounter, brief as it was, sparked something within Daniel. He realized there was more to Alex than the streets had led him to believe, and perhaps, just maybe, there was a lesson he needed to learn. Over the next few days, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling of unease mixed with a growing curiosity about Alex's life. Driven by a desire to understand the man who had saved him, Daniel sought him out. It wasn't an easy search, though. The streets Alex roamed weren't the parts of the city Daniel was familiar with. But eventually, he found him, sitting on a park bench, staring into the distance. The encounter was unexpected, but Daniel had made up his mind. He wanted to learn from Alex. What had motivated him to help a stranger when he had nothing to gain? "I'm offering you a job," Daniel said one afternoon, his voice unsure but determined. "You don't have to live like this. I can help." Alex looked at him for a moment, as if searching for an ulterior motive. He had seen plenty of people come and go in his life, offering empty promises. But something about Daniel's expression, something in his tone, told him this was different. Slowly, reluctantly, Alex agreed. What did he have to lose? A chance to step out of the streets, even for a little while, was something he hadn't dared hope for in years. But the transition wasn't smooth. Daniel's world, the world of high-rise offices, polished boardrooms, and expensive dinners, wasn't built for someone like Alex. The first few days at Daniel's office were uncomfortable for both of them. Alex felt out of place in a suit that didn't fit quite right, and Daniel's colleagues made their disapproval known in subtle but sharp ways. "Who's the new guy?" whispered one of Daniel's employees as Alex walked through the office, his mismatched clothes a stark contrast to the sleek, tailored suits around him. "Does he even know how to use a computer?" Daniel overheard the remarks, but he remained silent. Alex, however, heard everything. The sneers, the whispered insults, the way people looked through him as if he didn't belong. It hurt him more than he cared to admit. He had grown used to being ignored on the streets, but this was different. The sting of rejection from a world he had always viewed with reverence was far sharper than he had expected. Meanwhile, Daniel wrestled with his own doubts. He wanted to believe in this idea, that a homeless man could find a place in his world. But his friends, his business partners, and even his own mind told him it was a mistake. They didn't understand why he was bringing Alex into his life. What could someone like Alex possibly contribute to a company that thrived on ambition and profit? But the more time they spent together, the more Daniel saw beyond the surface. Alex might not have had a fancy degree or polished social skills, but he had something more valuable, an unshakable understanding of people and a wisdom born from surviving the hardest of circumstances. Alex's empathy, his ability to connect with others in a way that Daniel had lost over the years, was a skill no amount of money could teach. Still, their journey wasn't without setbacks. Alex stumbled, feeling inadequate in a world that seemed determined to remind him of his place. And Daniel, too, began to question his own motives. Was he really helping Alex, or was he just trying to prove something to himself? Days turned into weeks, and the transformation began. It was slow, almost imperceptible at first, but it was happening. Daniel started seeing life through Alex's eyes. The challenges Alex had faced were not just about surviving the streets. They were about resilience, about finding hope in a place where hope was scarce. Daniel, once focused solely on his business empire, began to question the true meaning of success. Was it really about wealth and power, or was it about connection, about understanding others, and about making a difference? For Alex, the transformation was equally profound. When he first agreed to work for Daniel, he had no real expectations, just a chance at something better. But as time passed, he found that he wasn't just surviving. He was beginning to thrive. He remembered the dreams he once had before life knocked him down, and slowly, he began to rebuild them, brick by brick. His confidence grew, as did his trust in Daniel, who, despite his flaws, was a man willing to offer a hand to someone in need. The relationship between the two men evolved from one of employer and employee to something far deeper, a friendship forged in the fire of adversity. They had come from different worlds, yet their struggles had brought them together. And as their bond grew stronger, so did their understanding of each other's pain, dreams, and hopes for the future. The journey ahead would not be easy. There were still many obstacles to overcome, but for the first time, both Daniel and Alex felt like they were moving towards something real, something that could change not just their lives, but the lives of everyone they touched. The defining moment of their journey came one evening, when the storm had long passed and both men had settled into a fragile understanding of their new lives. Alex and Daniel had been working together for months, their daily exchanges growing from business to personal. each conversation revealing more of their true selves. But it wasn't until one late evening that everything would change. It was a quiet night in Daniel's penthouse apartment, the city lights twinkling below like scattered stars. After a long day at work, they found themselves sitting on the balcony, sharing a drink, two men, worlds apart, now finding comfort in each other's company. Alex had been silent for most of the evening, lost in his thoughts. Daniel, sensing his unease, prodded, "You've been quiet tonight, Alex. What's on your mind?" Alex paused, looking out over the city, his expression distant. The weight of his past, which he had never fully shared with Daniel, seemed to settle over him. Finally, with a deep breath, Alex spoke. "You ever wonder why we end up where we do? How some people get everything handed to them, and others end up on the streets?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unsure of where the conversation was heading. "I suppose it's just luck or circumstance. You're dealt a hand and you play it." Alex shook his head. "Luck? Nah, it's not luck. It's the system. It's the same reason people like you don't even know I exist, because I'm not part of the world you live in. I was always invisible. And sometimes I wonder if I was always meant to be invisible." Daniel frowned, leaning forward. "You're not invisible to me, Alex. I see you." Alex's eyes met his, but there was a flicker of something else in them, something deeper, more painful. "You don't understand, Daniel. You really don't. I wasn't always like this. I had a life before, a family, dreams. I just didn't have the right cards to play." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice softening. Alex exhaled slowly, and for the first time, he allowed himself to share the truth he had buried for so long. "I used to have everything, a wife, a daughter, a decent job. But one day, my life turned upside down. My wife died in a car accident. My daughter was taken from me by the state. I lost everything. And in a matter of weeks, I was on the streets." Daniel's chest tightened as the reality of Alex's pain hit him. He had never imagined that the man who had helped him, the man who seemed so calm and strong, had suffered such unimaginable loss. He had assumed Alex's hardships were just part of a larger narrative, a story of poverty, addiction, and despair. But now, he realized the truth. Alex was not just a survivor. He was a man who had lost everything he loved and had never fully recovered. I didn't know," Daniel whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea." Alex looked away, his eyes filling with a mixture of regret and frustration. "No one knows, Daniel. No one ever does. People like me, we just disappear." The revelation hit Daniel harder than anything else in his life. He had never truly understood the depth of Alex's struggle. He had always viewed his life as a series of choices, choices that had led to success, to wealth, to power. But Alex's story was a stark reminder that life's cruelest turns were often beyond anyone's control, and no amount of wealth could shield someone from such devastating loss. The revelation shattered the delicate understanding that Daniel had begun to build with Alex. He was left grappling with a complex mix of guilt, shame, and compassion. How had he been so blind to the struggles of others? Alex had saved his life, yet Daniel had never asked about his past. He had assumed Alex was just a victim of circumstance, not realizing that his pain ran much deeper. As for Alex, the truth had set him free, but it had also cast a shadow over his new life. The promise of a better future, of redemption, now felt fragile. He had worked so hard to rebuild, to find a place in a world that had abandoned him. But how could he escape his past? Could he ever truly escape the scars of losing everything? Every time he looked at Daniel's life, the gap between their worlds felt more insurmountable. The fear of rejection, of not belonging, was something Alex struggled with constantly. And though Daniel had tried his best to help, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that no matter how much he changed, his past would always define him. The emotional distance between them grew, as both men grappled with their feelings. Daniel felt torn between wanting to fix things for Alex and the growing realization that he couldn't. Alex, on the other hand, wrestled with guilt, the guilt of accepting help from someone who had never known the kind of pain he had endured. They were standing on opposite sides of a chasm neither knew how to cross. The turning point came when Daniel asked a question that Alex had avoided for so long. "Do you think you'll ever find peace, Alex?" For a long time, Alex didn't respond. Then, with a heavy sigh, he finally spoke. "I don't know. I don't know if I can. But maybe peace isn't something you find. Maybe it's something you build. One day at a time." That moment, that simple yet profound exchange, was the catalyst for both of them. For Daniel, it was the recognition that the world wasn't as simple as he had once believed. It wasn't about having the right connections, the right wealth, or the right opportunities. Sometimes it was about surviving, about pushing forward even when life stripped everything away. And Alex had shown him that true resilience was built not on the power of wealth, but on the strength of the human spirit. Armed with this newfound understanding, both Daniel and Alex began to approach life differently. They had faced their own battles, Daniel with his guilt, Alex with his past, and together, they had come to a realization. The real challenge wasn't overcoming personal demons, but changing the system that perpetuated inequality, that allowed people like Alex to be forgotten. They didn't have all the answers, but they knew they had to do something. Daniel's business acumen and Alex's street-smart wisdom became a powerful combination. They began to form a plan not just to help Alex find his way, but to create opportunities for others who had been cast aside by society. They would challenge the very systems that had allowed them to become trapped in their own realities. Together, they launched a new initiative, one that focused on providing jobs, housing, and rehabilitation for homeless individuals, while also addressing the root causes of homelessness, poverty, mental health, and addiction. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of setbacks, but they were determined. They had faced their own turning points, and now it was time to create a turning point for others. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in their lives, both Daniel and Alex felt they had a renewed sense of purpose. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting for a future they could both believe in. Determined to create lasting change, Daniel and Alex worked tirelessly to launch a foundation aimed at helping the homeless rebuild their lives. The vision was clear: provide support, education, job training, and housing to those who had lost everything. But they didn't stop there. They wanted to give these individuals more than just a roof over their heads. They wanted to give them a chance to reclaim their dignity and purpose. The foundation, aptly named New Beginnings, became a beacon of hope in the city. It started small, with a few local shelters and job programs, but Daniel's business expertise and Alex's first-hand knowledge of the homeless experience made them an unstoppable team. They used Alex's story as the foundation's cornerstone, showing that anyone, no matter their past, could have a second chance if given the right tools. "Let's show the world that we can rebuild lives, not just with money, but with compassion," Daniel said during one of their early meetings. Alex, who had once been unsure of his own worth, now found himself standing in front of groups, speaking about his journey, his struggles, and the importance of never giving up. He had become the face of the foundation, a living testament to the power of resilience. Together, they began building relationships with local businesses, government officials, and volunteers, gaining support from all sides. Slowly but surely, their foundation began to make a difference. The first few success stories came in, people who had once been on the streets, now working, now thriving. Alex met with each of them personally, offering advice, encouragement, and the hope that they, too, could overcome their pasts. But as the foundation grew, so did the pressure. The two men knew they couldn't solve every problem, but they had set out to challenge a system that had ignored these individuals for far too long. And in doing so, they were now facing a whole new set of obstacles. It didn't take long before their initiative started facing serious opposition. Critics from all sides began questioning their motives. Some believed that a homeless man like Alex could never truly be the face of a successful enterprise. Others doubted whether someone with Daniel's wealth could truly understand the struggles of those he was trying to help. "Why should we listen to a millionaire who's never had to struggle a day in his life?" one critic asked. "And why should we follow someone who's been on the streets? He's just trying to redeem himself." These questions weren't just words, they were challenges. And for Alex, they hit especially hard. His past was being used against him. People dug into his history, bringing up the loss of his family, the time he spent on the streets, and the mistakes he'd made along the way. The media twisted his story, painting him as a man who could never overcome his past, who could never truly change. The pressure of these attacks weighed heavily on him. The foundation's progress stalled. Support waned as the negative press built up, and Daniel found himself constantly battling on multiple fronts, both professionally and personally. But perhaps the hardest blow came when Alex's past came to light in a way neither of them could have predicted. One of Alex's former acquaintances, someone he had known during his darkest days, showed up with damning information, questioning Alex's credibility. The man's words struck hard, and soon the media was swirling with negative headlines. Can a homeless man really help the homeless? Alex's past may be too dark to overcome. Alex struggled to keep his composure, torn between defending himself and feeling like he was back in the very position he had fought so hard to escape. But through it all, Daniel remained by his side, never wavering in his belief that Alex was the right person for this cause. "Don't listen to them," Daniel said firmly one evening, as they sat in the office late into the night. "Your story, Alex, it's what makes you the perfect person to lead this. You've been where they are. You can show them that it's possible to rebuild." Though Alex was unsure of how to handle the mounting pressure, he trusted Daniel's words. The two men had become more than partners. They were friends, brothers in arms, each carrying the weight of their mission. They knew that if they were going to succeed, they would have to prove their critics wrong, not just with words, but with action. Despite the setbacks, Daniel and Alex refused to back down. With each challenge, their resilience grew. The critics became louder, but so did the voices of support from those who had experienced the difference the foundation was making. The success stories multiplied, and soon the negative press was drowned out by the people whose lives were being transformed. Alex, who had once feared that his past would always hold him back, now embraced his story as a powerful tool for change. His transparency, his honesty about his struggles, became an inspiration for others. He began to see that his past didn't define him. It was his actions in the present that mattered. And every day, he chose to move forward. Daniel, too, found a new sense of purpose. As the foundation grew, he realized that true success wasn't about wealth or power. It was about leaving a lasting impact. And as he watched Alex stand tall, despite everything he had been through, Daniel knew that the path they had chosen was the right one. Their resilience became a beacon for others. Slowly, the negative headlines began to fade, replaced by stories of hope, redemption, and change. More businesses came on board, more individuals offered their time, and the community began to rally behind them. The challenges were still there, but with each obstacle, Daniel and Alex grew stronger. They learned to turn every setback into an opportunity to inspire others and to show that change was possible, no matter how hard the road. Through perseverance and mutual support, Daniel and Alex had not only overcome their own personal demons, they had started a movement. A movement that, little by little, was changing the world. Months had passed since Alex and Daniel first launched their foundation, and now they stood together on a grand stage, an event that symbolized everything they had achieved. The auditorium was packed, the air filled with a sense of anticipation. Alex, once a homeless man struggling to survive, now wore a suit and tie, a confident smile on his face as he prepared to address the crowd. He had transformed in ways he had never imagined possible, not just in his appearance, but in his heart. He wasn't standing there as a man defined by his past anymore. He was standing there as a symbol of hope, a living testament to the power of second chances. Beside him stood Daniel, who had always believed in Alex even when the world hadn't. Together, they had built a foundation that had already changed countless lives. They had helped hundreds of individuals find shelter, jobs, and the chance to rebuild their futures. Alex's story was now a beacon for others who had once been lost and forgotten. The applause that filled the room was not just for the achievements of the foundation, but for the resilience, the courage, and the love that Alex and Daniel had shown each other. It was a celebration of the profound transformation that had occurred, not just within Alex, but within both men. They had gone from being strangers to brothers, and together, they had changed the narrative around homelessness and poverty. As Alex took the microphone, his voice steady, He looked out at the audience with gratitude in his eyes. "I stand before you today not as someone who was saved, but as someone who has been given a chance to live a life of purpose. And none of this would have been possible without Daniel, without all of you who believed that change was possible." It was a moment of triumph, one that felt both surreal and deeply humbling. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest dreams, and Alex had come full circle. From a man who once felt invisible to someone whose voice could now inspire and lead others toward a brighter future. Their journey together had taught them many lessons, but perhaps the most important one was this: the greatest riches in life don't come from the money you earn or the power you accumulate. True wealth is found in giving back, in using your own success to lift others up, and in finding purpose beyond oneself. Alex and Daniel had set out with a mission to help the homeless, but in doing so, they had found something more valuable than anything money could buy: a sense of purpose that transcended their individual struggles. The road had been long and difficult, filled with setbacks and doubts, but it was through their shared vision and unshakable belief in each other that they had managed to overcome the challenges. Their bond had proven that the power of human connection, compassion, and understanding could break down even the harshest barriers. What they had learned, through each challenge, each triumph, was that the true meaning of success lies not in what you accumulate for yourself, but in how you help others create a better life. Alex's transformation wasn't just about escaping homelessness. It was about discovering his own worth, his own strength, and the immense power of human resilience. Daniel, too, had found a new purpose, one that was greater than just building his empire. Through his partnership with Alex, he had learned that true leadership was not about making money. It was about making a difference. Their story is one that encourages all of us to reflect on the lives we can touch, the difference we can make, and the potential for good that lies within each of us. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to start a ripple effect that can change someone's life and the world around them. Who in your life could use a helping hand? A small gesture, an encouraging word, a moment of your time, a shared opportunity can open doors for someone who might feel invisible or forgotten. Like Daniel and Alex, you never know when the smallest act of kindness could create a turning point for someone, just as it did for them. And in doing so, you may discover a sense of fulfillment that no amount of money or success could ever provide. If we all took a moment to look beyond ourselves, to see the potential in others and offer our support, the world would be a much brighter place. Sometimes, it's not about changing the world in grand gestures, but about changing one life at a time, one small act of compassion at a time. In a world divided by wealth and status, it's stories like these that remind us of the humanity we all share. True wealth isn't measured in money. It's found in the lives we touch, the hearts we inspire, and the hope we ignite. What Daniel and Alex proved is that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, there is always the potential for transformation, for redemption, and for change. Their journey is a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and the belief that, sometimes, the most unexpected heroes can change the world. Let their story be a reminder that it's never too late to make a difference, and that the greatest riches come not from what we have, but from what we give.